Hi everyone. On today's episode of Get Out and Explore with John, I've decided to do something a little bit slower paced as my trip to Glacier National Park winds down. So I decided to book a scenic boat tour of Lake McDonald through Glacier Park Boat Company, who have been operating lake tours in Glacier National Park since 1938. This family-owned company operates a fleet of historic wooden boats that take you out on the lake of Glacier National Park to experience views only available from the water. So as they say, all aboard! Let's go find our seat and relax while we learn about the history of Glacier National Park.
Thank you.
There you go.
You can go ahead and board.
I'm good? All right, thank you. How do we get to the upper deck? On the other side?
On the other side.
All right.
There's only 6 people out there at a given time, but we'll rotate through so we can find another seat for me at first. You can sit in the bow.
Let me take your picture on the front like that.
Give you guys a warm welcome. Glacier was founded in 1910. And it was the first of its kind to become an international peace park. So we do share a border with our Canadian friends. The Canadian side of the park is called Waterton. Very beautiful. Similar terrain to what we're seeing here. But that the reason it was founded as an international peace park is to foster friendship within the recreation community. Visitors to both parts of the park. So we appreciate that the relationship between our Canadian friends was built by a man named Billy Swanson, who was a prominent boat builder in the area at the time. And it took Billy Swanson actually just under 8 years to build this boat. So it's a very short amount of time for a boat as this size. We are a full wooden boat, so we have cedar planks here. And each one of those planks has to be the rounded sides of the boat here. This is the largest boat in our fleet here at Glacier Park Boat Company, having a capacity around 70 people. This lake in the park here. Lake McDonald is 10 miles long, a mile wide, and at its deepest point it is 474 feet deep. So pretty good sized lake here. It is glacially carved. So these ridges that we have that on either side of this lake here are called moraines. So when the glacier did come through here, these moraines would have been a place where glaciers would have deposited lots of rocks and debris. Glaciers tend to carve deep bathtub-shaped lakes, such as this one.
All right, a little more relaxing than hiking all day long. Got about 75 miles worth of hiking in this week, and I decided that this is my reward. So I'm going to enjoy the hour boat ride here and check out the lake from a different viewpoint.
The grandfathered into the 5 years. If you did a good job, that land would be yours. So Frank and Emmeline Kelly picked this piece of land. Frank worked for the Great Northern Railway, so he was pretty familiar with this area, and he loved this part of the park. So they let him homestead on it. They quickly learned that it was not going to be good for farming. As I said, this is a moraine, so these ridge lines here are really rocky. The soil is not great for farming, and the winters are very, very harsh. So Frank and Emmeline quickly learned that, and they asked the Park Service if they would kind of let them leave their agreement with the Homesteading Act, and if they would actually let them have a family resort here to kind of bring some tourism in. And the Park agreed. So they had a little family camp, a little summer camp for families to come up and stay here for about a month at a time. And it was a very family oriented vacation. So Frank would take the families hunting and fishing, and Emmeline would cook for them. Propane and fire mix pretty well, a little too well. And that propane actually accelerated the fire here along the ridge line. And at that point, the Park Service did fight that fire, so they asked for some help from our Canadian friends, our Canadian firefighters. And this boat was not used to have tours that year, but we did use it to transport firefighters to and from the fire, to help with that. We have two kind of major types of trees here on Howell Ridge. We have these trees that are still green, that look kind of like paintbrushes. They have that greenery on the top there. Those are the tamarack trees, also known as the western larch tree. And those are pretty cool species. They're actually fire resistant. They're fire resistant. So their bark has lots of layers to it. It's kind of cork-like bark. It's very tough and it can withstand these really high temperatures of heat. So most of these trees are still alive. Those trees that do look dead, those toothpick-looking ones, they are unfortunately dead. And those are the lodgepole pine trees. Those are fire dependent. What that means is that they have a serotinous cone. So the cone that holds all their seeds in it is covered in a layer of resin. And that resin needs degrees upwards of 120 sustained temperature to melt off so their cones can open up so their seeds can release. So it's pretty cool, even though those trees, the actual trees are dead, they have been able to release those seeds and reproduce so that this area will most of it will be lodgepole pine trees in a few hundred years or so. A lot of people come to Glacier for the wildlife. So talk a little bit about bears, which is a pretty hot topic in Glacier. A lot of people want to learn about bears. Have we had any bear sightings yet? Yes, 1, 2. Nice. Well, we do have them if you have bears, especially in this area. So the east side is more popular for those bear sightings if you're looking to find one. There's a few defining characteristics between a black bear and a grizzly bear. The easiest one to tell is the hump. So color isn't a great indicator, and neither is meat. Unlike like Alaskan grizzly bears or even our bears in Yellowstone. There was a study done, I believe in the 80s, 83 I think, where they did a huge survey of the bears here, and based on their fur, they were able to kind of create a genome, but also see what their diet was. And only 8 to 10% of our bears here, 8 to 10% of that diet is meat. So a lot of it is going to be vegetation, leaves, branches, insects. I did try to eat 25 pounds of huckleberries myself last year. It did not go well. Don't try this at home. Maybe just like buy it from really long chocolate factory. Probably doing the same thing. But we have lots of huckleberry products for humans to try. So you guys want to see some designs for milkshakes, pie. I think they have like deodorant and lotion. Might not be the best idea if you're hiking, but really good, lots of products. And a little fun fact about huckleberries is that humans have not found a way to agriculturally irrigate them, so it's really hard to grow. is going to be Mount Stanton. And Mount Stanton is one of my favorite names to tell how it got its name. My favorite stories to tell. So Mount Stanton was named after a couple, kind of. There was Lottie and Badrock Stanton. And they were married, and Badrock had his eye on Mount Stanton for a while. He wanted to climb it. So he found a guide that would take him up the mountain. And Lottie was pretty excited by this journey. She was really pumped to be climbing a mountain and seeing the beautiful views. So they kind of made base camp at the base of Mount Stanton here, planning to summit the next day. And that night, Badrock told Lottie Stanton that he she was going to stay behind. He told her that women were not meant to climb mountains and that he was expecting her to make dinner for the boys when they got back. So the next day, the men set out on their adventure to climb Mount Stanton. And they did reach the top of the summit. And when they did, they saw a kind of weird looking mountain goat. So they approached it, with caution of course. And that mountain goat turned out to be Lottie Stanton. She had taken a more dangerous route and beat the men to the top. So the mountain is named after Lottie Stanton instead of her husband Badrock. That peak that has that very tiny snow patch on it. To the right of that is McPartland, that flatter looking peak. To the right of McPartland, deep into that large wall, is the Garden Wall, also known as the Continental Divide. To the right of the Continental Divide, there is that peak in the middle that's kind of flatter looking on the top, but very steep. That is Mount Cannon. To the right of Cannon, this peak in the foreground coming down and touching the control with Mount Brown. Mount Brown kind of looks like a man facing up towards the sky, so you can see his chin, lips, and eye sockets, and his forehead. And on that forehead, there's a tiny little pimple. That is one of our fire lookout towers. It's not one of the active fire lookouts. There's no one in there right now. There's no one manning that fire. Last time there was someone living up there observing for fires was in 2018 for the Howell Ridge fire. That was a brief period of time. Little fun story about the Howell Ridge lookout and place camp across the lake is that when there was a resort there, when there was a camp, the children would stay in canvas tents. And they would use their lights at night to use Morse code to communicate with the fire lookout tower. Kind of a fun way to text at night. Behind Edwards, with that little speckle of snow on it, is going to be dust. And they were on their honeymoon coming to Glacier. And their goal was to climb this mountain as a couple. So they found a guide that would take them. And they did summit that mountain. And to celebrate their marriage, they brought a bottle of champagne, popped it, and wrote a note saying that they're the Cannons and that this is their honeymoon. And then about 85 years later, the next person climbed the mountain found that bottle and named the mountain after the Cannons. Just kind of like Brock and Allie are on this boat celebrating their anniversary here. So I do expect you guys to climb a mountain to celebrate that. Not sure what your last name is, but there's definitely some unnamed lakes you guys could maybe name after yourself. Pretty different from our ridge line on the left here. Obviously the main reason of that is fire. So our Snyder Ridge has not seen a significant fire in a long time. Another reason is that this is actually a rainforest. So it is the easternmost portion of our Pacific Northwest rainforest. You might be wondering how this rainforest and these glaciers mix. This forest became here due to a volcanic explosion of Mount Mazama. You guys might be familiar with that, as that explosion did create Crater Lake, created this forest here. This is Get Out and Explore with John. Oh. So we're gonna be in the YouTube video. Heck yeah. So you can send it to your mom. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Whatever kind of camping feature you spoke about. These staircases are actually come down from the campground. One for each active and two because it's a popular scuba diving site. We do have a pretty unique underwater cedar forest that we're driving over right now. And that cedar forest came down from a landslide off the Snyder Ridge a few hundred years ago. And that landslide brought those trees into the water, and as that mud hit the water, it kind of fermented and solidified these trees in their roots. So they fell to the bottom. They are standing straight up. And they are not alive, though, they are dead trees. And in a few hundred years, this will be petrified wood underwater. So it's pretty cool sight to see what our roots come to. There's a shipwreck down at near Fish Creek campground. Where people will see that. They lit the boat on fire and watched it burn and sink. It's kind of like the party we have here at the boat company for our seasonal workers. Just kidding. We would never sink this boat. Here, again, when there was no going to some road, people come up by other people from here. Someone from their boat. But George Snyder was the first.
All right, guys, that was an awesome way to finish my week in Glacier National Park. Hope you all enjoyed the boat ride as much as I did. And like I always say, you never know what you're going to see. when you get out and explore with John.